Hi, this is Skylar Burt from WeTogether.com coming at you with another Photoshop tutorial for you food photographers out there. And I'm really excited about this Photoshop tutorial because I get to use some of the tools that I use in every day with my photos. We're going to be retouching using tools inside of Photoshop such as the clone stamp tool and the patch tool. Now, like I said, these two tools are like the primary reason I use Photoshop, and they make quick work of all the retouching that needs to be done to food photographs on a usual basis. Now, this black plate that we have here, it really, really did a good job of making the food stand out against it, but it also worked against us because it really shows all the little dust and pieces of particle in the air that floated down and landed on the plate, as well as some little specks of food that got misplaced or splattered around the dish. And so to retouch this, we're going to be using the patch tool for the smaller areas, such as these little specks of dust and food, and the clone stamp tool for some of the larger areas, such as the sauce over here that kind of bleeds out of the plate or out of the frame, and some of the sauce over here that's underneath these beautiful lamb chops. So to get started, I'm going to press the Command J, which will give us a new layer. And I'm going to be working on this layer, so that way I always have the original and preserve the original, so I can go back to it if I do something that I don't like or want to make a new edit. And to get the patch tool, I'm going to press J on the keyboard or go over to the tool palette and click on the drop-down menu and select patch tool. Now there's some other tools here, but we'll save those for another tutorial. They all do a good job of cleaning stuff up too, but the patch tool is really my favorite, and it really makes quick work of all these little spots that we have to do. And if I zoom in really close, you can see there's a lot of spots that I'm going to have to clean up, but I'm not going to worry about that because with the patch tool, I'm going to be able to clean up those spots really nice and easy. Now, to get started with the patch tool, all you have to do is click and draw around the offending object, and then move the selection that it makes to a cleaner area in the photo. And Photoshop will do a really great job of blending those two areas together. So, like I said again, I just click and draw or highlight the defect. It adds these marching ants or creates a selection, and then I can click and drag to a cleaner spot in the photo, and wha-bam. Nobody's the wiser. That defect is totally gone and nobody can see it. Photoshop, really great with the patch tool. So you can see that I can move around the image in quite a very quick fashion and clean up all these little spots really, really efficiently. One thing I want to be careful of with using the patch tool, I wouldn't want to highlight an object on the plate and then move the selection over to say something like the table, because I'll get a really fuzzy, strange looking pattern that will be a big clue that I've done some retouching, and people will be aware of that, and it'll look really ugly. So I'll be careful while I'm doing that. I'll just kind of move in horizontal or vertical motions around my selection here. And I can just move really quickly around the photo, removing all these little spots and specks of dust. I won't make you stand through the whole thing, so I'll speed up the film now, and you can watch me move around this image, and I'll come back and it'll be perfectly clean. Okay, now we have that pretty much finished up, and I can zoom in here and you can see all the really nice work that the patch tool did. I can turn on and off the layer so you can see what it looked like before the patch tool, and then we use the patch tool to quickly erase all the defects, and it looks like they never were there to begin with. This is not just for food photography. Now, if you have some dirt on your lens or some dirt on your dust or dirt on your sensor and you're taking a landscape shot and you can really see it in the sky, the patch tool will work really great for that as well. So it works really good for all sorts of photography. It's a very useful tool, and it's one of the main reasons to own Photoshop, in my opinion, is for the patch and the clone stamp tool. Great at quickly retouching those photos. So now I have these larger areas. Like I said, I'll use the patch tool for the smaller areas, but for the larger areas I like to use the clone stamp tool. And it's mainly because when you're patching, I couldn't just patch tool this area. If I wanted to remove this sauce that's bleeding out of the frame, I wouldn't be able to just circle it and say, try to delete it. You can see that everything becomes really rather fuzzy because Photoshop is essentially saying, okay, there's information in this area over here and this information over here. Let's blend them together and this is the result. So it's not very nice. The clone stamp tool is where you really want to work with larger areas like this. And the clone stamp tool is a brush type tool. So it has all the same properties that all the other brushes have in Photoshop, meaning that you can make the brush larger or smaller by pressing the left or right bracket keys, or make the brush harder and softer by pressing Shift plus the left to right bracket keys. Right bracket key will make it harder, and left bracket key with holding down Shift makes it softer. Now a hard brush is great for those really fine edges, and if I press Alt or Option on my keyboard and I click on the target which I want to stamp or want to copy, then I move the brush over, you can see that it's created a new area for this, but with hard edges. So you can really see the hard edges around where it's stamped. So that's good for fine edge work. When you're working around like a table or maybe the edge of this sauce, I'll use a harder brush. But I'll also blend it with a softer brush, and so a softer clone stamp, you'll get more of a fuzzy edge. So again, I can click on the Alt, click on where I want to copy, move over to say where my defect is, and click, and you'll see a much softer blended edge. So this is really great for the majority of stamp work that you're going to be doing. So I'm going to remove this bits of sauce that's bleeding out of the frame here, and also maybe fix up some of the reflection. To do that, I'm going to have to erase the reflection underneath the sauce as well as the sauce itself, and probably add some of this reflection back into the photo where it wasn't before. It'll be really easy work with the stamp, and you can see that I'm again going to be working in kind of vertical or horizontal movements from where my source is located. That way I can ensure that I'm copying the same tone, texture, and the texture and sharpness that is and should be underneath the subject that I'm copying or stamping over. So I'm going to click Alt, and I'm going to kind of just recreate this reflection real quick. Alright, I'm going to watch out for repeating patterns because those are kind of dead giveaways that some retouching has been done, and so you don't really want to have repeating patterns, and I'll show you what I mean. Just an example, I'll make my brush really big, I'll copy this, and let's say you're trying to make this bigger and you have kind of these repeating patterns that you can see here. So we want to be careful, and this is kind of silly, but it happens a lot, even when you're using a smaller brush size, so you gotta be careful about those repeating textures or repeating patterns when you're stamping. So I'm just gonna work along here, kind of erasing this area that looks kind of ugly, and then I'm gonna get rid of this blob. And to do so, first I'm going to get rid of the reflection here, and then I'm just gonna work down and up to get rid of this sauce really kind of quickly. So like I said, I'm moving in a horizontal, kind of a horizontal brush strokes as I'm getting rid of it. And you can see there's a repeating pattern, so maybe I'll just click around and remove that. So there, I got rid of that reflection, and I can start getting rid of some of the food here rather quickly. I'll take some from the top and work down. Anything to make it look as realistic as possible. Now I'm using a soft brush again for this work, and when I get closer to that edge, I'll switch probably to a harder brush to make more of a defined edge, and it looks more realistic. Bam. There we go. Grab my patch tool, get rid of this spot I see here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Looks pretty realistic to me. Zoom out here and you can kind of see what it looks like at 100%. Looks pretty good. You can double click on the zoom tool and that'll show you what 100% would look like, or like what it would look like if it was going to be printed. So now I won't make you watch the rest of this. I'll just I'll speed it up again. I'm going to clean up this sauce that's underneath the meat. Okay, so there you go. We've cleaned up the image with the clone stamp and patch tool. It looks really great. And I can zoom in here and kind of show you before and after. The clone stamp tool did a really good job of removing that sauce in and around the meat. You can see before and after. And also taking the sauce away from the edge of the plate there. And the patch tool did a really good job of cleaning up all these little spots that we had in our image. And you can zoom in, you can see there was quite a lot of spots. It's really amazing what's in a professional 5-star restaurant, and that falls on your plate. So, yeah, the clone stamp tool and the patch tool, again, some of my favorite tools in Photoshop. One of the main reasons why I own Photoshop still, and don't just do everything in Lightroom, because the patch tool and the clone stamp tool really make quick work of the retouching that you need to do on a professional level for your food photographs. Now, you're going to want to do this patch tooling and clone stamp tooling. You're going to want to do it if you're going to be printing your images or zooming in on your images or anything that has to do with looking at your images at 100%, because at 100% you're going to see all those little defects really clearly, and so the patch tool and the clone stamp tool will make it look very perfect. Thank you for watching the tutorial, and I hope it was helpful. Again, this is Skylar Burt for WeEatTogether.com, signing off.